Welcome to my channel, The World of Science Fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
I'm considering your offer.
The heat hit Evan Calder like a fist the moment he stepped into the market. Not the clean, dry heat of open desert. This was something alive, thick with the smell of cooking oil, unwashed bodies, and metal baking under a sun that never seemed to move. The market sprawled across what used to be a settlement before the wars, before the collapse, before people stopped asking why the sky stayed that particular shade of copper-tinged gray. Now it was just stalls and tarps strung between skeletal buildings, vendors hawking scrap, food that might kill you slower than starvation, and weapons that might not break on first use. Humans were rare here. Conversations dipped as he passed. Three-eyed traders, slit-pupiled clansfolk, and horned scavengers watching him with the same wary hunger. Evan moved through the crowd with his shoulders hunched, one hand on the credits in his pocket, the other near the broken knife on his hip. He'd come for a blade. Something simple, something that wouldn't snap when he needed it most. A hand shot out and grabbed his sleeve. "No steel today, traveler." Evan turned. The merchant was older, face creased like dried leather, eyes sharp and calculating behind the film of dust. His stall was mostly empty. A few corroded tools, some wire, nothing worth stopping for. "I'm looking for something better," the merchant interrupted. His smile showed gaps where teeth used to be. "Much better." Evan tried to pull away, but the grip tightened. "You don't understand," the merchant said, voice dropping. "I'm offering you a fortune. One purchase. Changes everything." "Not interested." "You will be." The merchant yanked a tarp aside. Inside the crate, curled against rough wooden slats, was a girl. No, not human. Evan's mind stuttered trying to process what he was seeing. Blue skin, darker than sky, lighter than midnight. Tall, even folded into that impossible position, she had to be over 7 feet. Even curled up, she radiated the wrong kind of power. Muscle coiled like rope beneath bruises. Strength that looked capable of tearing a man in half if she ever got a clean grip. She wore something like cloth strips, torn and filthy, barely covering her. But it was the cage that made Evan's stomach drop. A heavy iron framework encased her entire head, welded directly to a thick collar around her neck. Not a helmet, a cage. Bars crossed her face in a grid pattern, close enough that she couldn't fit her fingers through. The metal looked old, rusted in places, but solid, unbreakable. At intervals around the collar, circular rings were embedded into the iron, each one etched with symbols that seemed to pulse with a faint orange glow, like embers buried in ash. The rings weren't mystical. They were old clan tech, pre-collapse mechanisms no one alive fully understood. "What the hell?" The girl's breathing was shallow, rapid. Her eyes, wide and golden, tracked his movement with the intensity of a trapped animal. The merchant leaned in close, breath sour. "Buy her, stronger than steel, worth 10 soldiers. Never remove the cage," he hissed. "Without fear, she forgets she's merchandise." Evan stared. His throat felt tight. This isn't a person," the merchant said flatly. "This is merchandise. 20 years of war taught us that. You want protection in the waste? She'll tear through raiders like paper. You want labor? She can haul twice what a pack beast can. Just keep the cage on and she stays manageable." The girl shifted, chains rattling. When she spoke, her voice was tiny, almost broken. "Don't come closer." For a heartbeat, the chains went tight as if she almost lunged. Even caged and half curled, there was coiled power in the way her muscles tensed. Evan froze. The bars shook as she pressed back against the crate wall. Her voice rose, desperate. "Your scent marks me. If your people smell it on me, if my clan smells it, it means death." "What are you talking about?" "Human scent," she whispered, and her eyes were so afraid it hurt to look at them. "It marks us. They'll know. They always know." The merchant kicked the crate. "Quiet, you. Don't scare away buyers with your clan nonsense." Evan's hand moved to his knife before he could think. "Don't touch her again." The merchant raised both hands, still smiling. "Protective already? Good instinct. Shows you understand value. 300 credits and she's yours. Cage stays on. That's not negotiable. Remove it and you void the purchase. Probably void your life too." He laughed at his own joke. Evan's mind was racing. This was wrong. Every part of this was wrong. The girl was clearly intelligent. She spoke. She understood. She was terrified in a way that only came from comprehension of what was happening to her. The cage wasn't restraint. It was torture. He should walk away. He should report this. He should... The girl's eyes met his, and in them he saw something that made his chest ache. Not hope. Hopelessness. The absolute certainty that no one would help, that this was her existence now, that there was no point in even asking. Behind Evan, unseen in the crowd, a figure in dark wrappings and a cloth mask watched. Blue hands hung loose at her sides, but her posture was coiled, ready. She turned to someone Evan couldn't see and whispered words he couldn't hear. "So the cursed one has found a buyer." The masked figure melted back into the crowd as Evan knelt by the crate. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said quietly. The girl recoiled so violently the chains snapped taut, cutting into her wrists. Fresh blood welled up. "You already did." Her voice trembled with rage and terror mixed together. "Your smell is on me now. The air around me. It's touched you. They'll know. They track by fear, and human scent amplifies it. You marked me just by standing there. Your people do this to you?" Her laugh was bitter. "My people put me in here. Your people bought the cage to begin with. Everyone profits. Everyone punishes." The merchant was counting credits at his stall, confident in the sale. "Strong as a war beast, but scared like a cub. Perfect weapon, eh? Break her in right and she'll serve for decades. The cage keeps her honest." The cage wasn't magic. It was ancient engineering built to enforce loyalty through neurofeedback and punishment protocols. Evan felt his jaw clench so hard his teeth ached. He pulled out his credit sheet, the one he'd been saving for 6 months, for equipment, for supplies, for a future. "How much?" 300. 200. She's injured and terrified. That drops the value. The merchant's eyes gleamed. 250. Final. Evan transferred the credits. All of them. Every single one he had. The moment the transaction completed, the merchant grinned and stepped back. "Pleasure doing business." That's when Evan heard it. A sharp whistle cutting through the market noise like a blade. The crowd parted. Even the crowd recoiled when the 3 masked warriors entered, like the air itself tightened around them. 3 figures stepped into the clearing around the stall. They moved with predator grace, bodies wrapped in dark, flexible material that looked like it could turn a knife. Each wore a mask, smooth, featureless, except for eye slits. Each was tall, powerfully built, with that same blue skin visible on their hands and forearms. The one in front pulled off her mask. She was stunning in the way a storm was stunning, beautiful and absolutely terrifying. Same blue skin as the caged girl, but unmarked, unbruised. Her hair was cropped short, practical. Her eyes were the same golden color but sharp, cold, furious. "Rava?" The caged girl, Rava, went rigid. "Sister." The woman stared at Evan with pure contempt. "You bought our criminal. Now her curse belongs to you." Evan's hand went to his knife, but he knew it was useless. These were warriors. He was a scavenger with delusions of survival. "What do you want?" he asked. "Justice," the sister said. "And you just became part of it." The other 2 warriors spread out, cutting off escape routes. The sister stepped closer, her gaze never leaving Evan's face. "I am Saret. That creature in the cage is my blood, my shame. She broke our oldest law. The cage is her sentence. By purchasing her, you've accepted responsibility for enforcing that sentence. Remove the cage and you die. Let her die while wearing it, and you're free of obligation. Those are your choices." "That's not a choice," Evan said. "That's murder. That's law." Saret's expression didn't change. "Be grateful we allow you to live at all. Most humans who touch our kind don't see morning." "Saret, please." Rava's voice cracked. He didn't know. Just let him go. He made the purchase. He carries the consequence. Saret looked at her sister with something that might have been pain, buried under layers of ice. "You should have thought of that before you saved one of them." Evan grabbed the crate by its edge. "We're leaving." "No," Saret said. "You're not." But Evan was already moving, hauling the crate backwards through the crowd. It was heavy. The girl inside was solid muscle, and the cage was iron, and the chains were industrial grade. but adrenaline gave him strength he didn't know he had. The warriors didn't follow. That was worse somehow. Evan dragged the crate through narrow alleys between collapsed buildings, into the shadow of an old water tower that leaned at a dangerous angle. Its metal skin rusted through in places. The sun was starting to set, painting everything in shades of amber and blood. Silence. Just wind whistling through broken structures, a moment of stillness that felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. Evan forced the chain lock open with a piece of rebar, the mechanism protesting before it finally gave. The chains fell away from Rava's wrists, leaving raw circles of abraded skin. She didn't run. She just pulled her knees to her chest, the caged head lowered, and sat there breathing. "Why is your sister hunting you?" Evan asked. Rava's voice was barely audible. "The cage isn't a tracker. It's punishment. A sentence. No one is allowed to remove it, not even family. Especially not family." "A sentence for what?" She finally looked at him, golden eyes visible through the iron bars. "For saving a human child." The words hung in the air. Evan sat down hard, his back against the crate. "You saved someone and they did this to you?" "Our laws are specific. Humans and my kind. We don't mix. We don't touch. We don't interact." The child was dying, caught in a building collapse during a raid. I pulled her out. I carried her to safety. Rava's fingers curled in the sand. Her parents saw. They reported me to my clan. My clan judged me. This was the mercy option. Mercy? The alternative was execution. Her voice was flat, empty. "The cage lets me live. It just makes sure I remember why I'm being punished every second I breathe." Evan felt something break inside his chest. "That's insane. That's law." She echoed her sister's words. "You should leave before they return. The scent spreads fast. Once they track you here, they'll track you everywhere. You bought me, but you didn't buy safety. I'm not leaving you." Rava's hand stilled in the sand. She stared at him through the bars, and for the first time something other than fear crossed her face. Confusion, disbelief, a fragile, dangerous thing that might have been hope. "Why?" she whispered. "You don't know me. You'll die for this." "Maybe." Evan leaned his head back against the crate, exhausted. "But I'm not walking away." The calm settled over them like dust. Too calm, too quiet. Then a spear slammed into the sand between them, so close to Evan's leg he felt the wind of it. "Found you." Sirette stood 10 feet away, flanked by her warriors. More figures emerged from the ruins. 5, 7, 10 of them. All armed, all watching with those golden eyes. "Step away from the criminal," Sirette ordered. Evan stood and moved in front of Rava instead. Sirette's eyes narrowed. "You shield her? A human shields a caged criminal?" Rava's voice came from behind him, rough with emotion. "I saved a child. I broke no law of decency." "You broke our law." Sirette's voice cracked like a whip. "You touched their world. You breathed their air. You let one of them see you as something other than enemy. And now," she pointed at Evan, "now this one carries your shame, your curse, your stench of human sympathy." Evan picked up a piece of rusted rebar from the ground. It was bent, corroded, probably weighed less than Sirette's spear. She laughed. "Your weapon is trash. Good thing I didn't come for a weapon today." The laugh died. Sirette gestured and her warriors moved in. The fight was ugly. No technique, no finesse. Just desperate survival against trained killers. Evan swung the rebar and connected with a warrior's arm, heard something crack, but then a spear shaft caught him across the ribs and he felt his bones flex. He staggered, blocked another strike that nearly took his head off, and the rebar bent further, metal fatigue finally winning. "Evan left!" Rava screamed from inside the crate. He ducked and a blade whistled past his ear. Another warrior came in fast, too fast, and slashed. The blade caught Evan across the forearm, bit deep, and blood sprayed in an arc. Some of it hit the water tower. Some of it hit the sand. Some of it hit the cage. Rava gasped like she'd been stabbed. "No! Your blood on it!" The cage started to glow, not the faint orange pulse of the rings. This was deep red, angry, spreading across the entire iron framework. The rings began to rotate, clicking into new positions, symbols rearranging themselves. The sound was mechanical and organic at once. like bones shifting in a joint. It wasn't magic, it was biometric response. Human blood triggered dormant clan tech in the collar, an old system meant to bind pairs in wartime. The warrior staggered back. Saret's face went pale. No, that's not possible. The light intensified. The ring spun faster, locking into a new pattern with a deafening metallic snap. Heat rolled off the cage in waves. A thin red line of light dropped from the collar to the sand and sank in, like a needle-piercing flesh. The ground pulsed once, then went still. Every warrior in sight flinched at the same moment, as if something invisible had grabbed their lungs. Saret whispered, "He awakened the oath." Rava was trembling so hard the crate was shaking. "Evan, don't touch it. Don't touch the cage. It brands us as one. It's a death sentence for both of us." Evan looked at his bleeding arm, then at the glowing cage, then at Rava's terrified face behind the bars. He gripped the iron. The metal seared his palms instantly, smell of burning flesh immediate and nauseating. Smoke rose from where his skin made contact. The pain was white-hot, absolute, the kind that made thinking impossible. Rava screamed, "It burns humans alive!" "Let go! Let go!" Evan didn't let go. He pulled. The cage resisted. The metal heated further, going from red to white. Impossible to hold, impossible to release. Evan's vision blurred. He could feel his palms blistering, skin peeling away, the pain so intense it became something separate from him, something he could almost observe from outside his body. Saret was shouting, "Stop! The law forbids removing the punishment cage. Anyone who breaks it dies. The oath will kill you." "Then they can kill me later," Evan roared through clenched teeth. He pulled harder. The cage resisted harder. Somewhere in the red haze of pain, Evan heard Rava crying. Not screaming anymore. Crying. Soft, broken sounds. "Please," she whispered. "Please don't die for me." That's what did it. Not strength, not determination. Just the sound of her voice, so small and shattered and full of care for someone she barely knew. Evan yanked with everything he had left. The cage shattered. Not bent, not broke. Shattered. Like it was made of glass instead of iron. Fragments exploding outward and falling to the sand in pieces that still glowed with dying red light. The collar split and fell away. The chains dissolved into rust. Silence. Complete absolute silence. Rava lifted her hands to her face, slowly like she didn't believe it was real. Her fingers touched bare skin for the first time in years. No bars, no metal, just her. She started sobbing. Saret stood frozen, her spear hanging loose in her grip. "You broke the forbidden object." Her voice was hollow. "Your lives are now bound by blood oath. There's no precedent, no law for this. You're something new." Evan collapsed to his knees, hands smoking, barely conscious. He tried to speak, but nothing came out. Rava crawled out of the broken crate and caught him before he hit the ground. She was strong, terrifyingly strong, cradling his weight like it was nothing. She looked down at him with those golden eyes, and they weren't afraid anymore. "You freed me," she whispered. Tears ran down her blue cheeks. "And condemned yourself." Evan managed something that might have been a smile. "Worth it." Then the war horn sounded. Not one, not three. Dozens of them, echoing across the waste from every direction. A coordinated signal that made every warrior present stiffen. "No," Saret breathed. "No, they can't be calling full tribunal. Not for this." "What's happening?" Rava asked, voice sharp with fear. "The clan knows. The oath leaves a shock in the blood. Every elder, every warrior, every judge, everyone with our mark felt it hit at once." Saret looked at her sister. "They're not coming to kill you. They're coming to judge both of you." More figures appeared on the ruined buildings around them. 20, 30, 50. All wearing the warrior garb, all armed, all watching in absolute silence as the horns continued to blow. Evan tried to stand and nearly fell. Rava held him up, one arm around his waist, supporting his weight. "Can you walk?" she asked quietly. "Have to." They stood together as the warriors closed in, not attacking, just surrounding, creating a circle. Evan's burned hands throbbed with each heartbeat. Blood still ran down his arm from the cut. He was fairly sure he had at least 2 broken ribs and possibly internal bleeding. But he was standing, and Rava was free. The warriors parted and an older woman walked through, flanked by 4 guards. She was ancient by any measure, skin weathered, body thin, but she moved with authority that made everyone straighten. Her eyes swept across the scene, the broken cage, the blood, Evan's burned hands, Rava's tear-stained face. "Elder Corrin," Surratt said, dropping to one knee. The other warriors followed. Elder Corrin stopped in front of Evan and Rava. She studied them for a long moment. "Explain," she said. One word, but it carried the weight of absolute command. Surratt spoke, voice steady despite the tension. "The human purchased Rava from a merchant. I confronted him to enforce the punishment terms. During combat, his blood touched the cage. The oath activated. He broke the cage and survived." "Why?" Elder Corrin asked, looking at Evan. Evan met her gaze. His voice was rough, barely more than a rasp. "Because it was wrong. Our law's wrong. Punishing someone for saving a life? Yeah, that's wrong." Murmurs ran through the assembled warriors. Elder Corrin's expression didn't change. "The punishment cage is reserved for the gravest betrayals. Contact with humans is forbidden because it has destroyed clans before. We have watched your kind wage war, enslave, corrupt. We have kept our distance for survival." Rava knew this. She broke the law anyway. "She saved a child," Evan said. "If that's betrayal in your culture, then your culture is broken." The murmurs became angry growls. Several warriors raised their weapons. Elder Corrin raised one hand and silence fell immediately. She looked at Rava. "And you? What do you say?" Rava's voice was stronger now. "I say I would do it again. The child was dying. Human or not, she was innocent. I couldn't walk away." "Even knowing the cost?" "Even knowing the cost." Elder Corrin nodded slowly. "And now you are bonded. The oath has marked you both. Do you understand what this means?" "No," Evan and Rava said at the same time. The elder almost smiled. "It binds 2 lives into one thread. If one dies, the other follows within days. If one suffers, the other feels it. You cannot be separated by more than a mile without pain. You are, in the most literal sense, bound together until death." Evan's stomach dropped. "We didn't choose that." "No, but you activated it through blood and will. Choice is complicated." Elder Corrin turned to Surratt. "What does the law say?" Surratt's voice was tight. "Law says, the breaker becomes the counterpart, the protector, the equal. Not a slave? No. Not a prisoner? No. Then what?" Surratt took a breath. "A bond partner, one who shares burden equally." Elder Corrin looked back at Rava and Evan. "You are bonded by blood. The clan must accept this or reject you both. Rejection means exile and execution." She paused. "But acceptance means you fight for us, and we fight for you. Both of you." Rava straightened, still supporting Evan's weight. "I accept." All eyes turned to Evan. He looked at his ruined hands, at the warriors surrounding them, at Rava's face inches from his, at the broken pieces of cage glinting in the sand. He thought about the fear in her eyes in that crate, the sound of her voice begging him to walk away, the way she'd looked when the bars finally fell. "I accept," he said. Elder Corrin nodded. "Then it is done. Rava of the Blue Ridge clan is pardoned. Evan Calder of no clan is adopted. You are both recognized as bonded pairs under ancient law. Surratt, you will be responsible for their training and integration." Surratt's face went through several expressions before settling on resignation. She knelt. "As you command." One by one, the other warriors knelt. The elder left without another word, her guards following. As soon as she was gone, Rava's knees buckled. Evan tried to catch her and nearly fell himself. They ended up sitting in the sand together, both shaking with adrenaline, crash, and exhaustion. "That was insane, Anur," Evan said. "That was mercy," Rava countered. "You have no idea how close we came to execution." "I have some idea." He looked at his hands. The burns were bad. He could see exposed muscle in places. "I'm going to need medical attention. We have healers." Rava touched his wrist gently, carefully avoiding the burned areas. "Thank you. You didn't have to do any of that." "Yes, I did." "Why?" Evan thought about it. About the heat of the market, the merchant's casual cruelty. The moment he saw her trapped in that cage, The wrongness of it that went deeper than logic or sense. Because you were scared, he said finally, and no one should have to be that scared. Rava's eyes filled with tears again. She leaned her head against his shoulder, carefully like she was afraid he'd push her away. And they sat there as the sun finally finished setting. Surette approached. Her warriors dispersed to give them space. She looked at Evan with something that might have been respect. The oath is not a small thing, she said. You will feel what she feels. She will know your thoughts like echoes. You will dream each other's dreams. Some bonded pairs go mad from the intimacy. Great, Evan muttered. But some, Surette glanced at her sister, some become stronger than they ever were alone. Rava lifted her head. Sister, don't, Surette's voice cracked. Don't apologize. I should have fought for you harder. I should have broken that cage myself. She knelt in the sand between them. I failed you as family, but I won't fail you as a warrior. You have my blade, both of you. Rava reached out and gripped her sister's hand. They sat in the growing darkness, three people bound by blood and law and choices that couldn't be undone. Evan looked at the shattered cage in the sand, pieces still faintly glowing, and thought about how he'd walked into that market looking for a weapon. Simple, straightforward. Instead, he'd found someone who needed him in a way no one ever had. Someone who'd been punished for kindness and caged for mercy. Someone who'd looked at him with terror and then, impossibly, with trust. Rava touched his burned hand again, gentle as breathing. For years, they told me humans bring only death. Evan met her golden eyes. And? She smiled, small, fragile, real. You brought me freedom. More warriors were gathering now, setting up a camp perimeter, bringing supplies. Someone brought bandages and a medical kit. Someone else brought water. The clan was accepting them, however grudgingly. Surette stood and pulled Rava to her feet, then helped Evan up. He swayed but stayed upright. The healers will see to your injuries, Surette said. Then we need to discuss training. If you're going to survive as a bonded pair, you both need to learn how to fight together. The oath will help. It creates instinctive coordination, but it takes time to adjust. How much time? Evan asked. Weeks? Maybe months? It depends on how well you sync. Surette started walking toward the camp lights. And how much pain you can tolerate. The early stages are uncomfortable. Define uncomfortable. You'll wish you were back in the market. Rava laughed, actually laughed, and it was such a strange, unexpected sound that several warriors turned to stare. What? She asked, defensive. Nothing, Surette said quietly. It's just been a long time since I heard you laugh. They walked into the camp together, three figures against the darkening sky. A warrior, a criminal turned free, and a human who'd spent every credit he had to break an unbreakable cage. The medical tent was crude but functional. A healer with scarred hands and kind eyes took one look at Evan's palms and winced. This is going to hurt, she warned. More than breaking the cage? Different hurt. Sit. Evan sat. Rava sat beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. The healer started cleaning the burns, and Evan's vision went white with pain. He felt Rava's hand on his back, steady pressure, grounding him. Felt her breathing, slow and deep, like she was trying to breathe for both of them. Through the oath, though he didn't understand it yet, he felt her pain too. Not physical, emotional. Guilt and gratitude and fear and something else, something warm and fierce and protective that had no name. You okay? She whispered. Not even a little bit. Good. Me neither. They sat there while the healer worked, bound by something older than law, stronger than metal, as permanent as scars. Outside, the desert wind picked up, carrying the scent of sand and smoke and distant rain that would never reach them. The war horns had stopped. The tribunal was over. But Evan knew, could feel it in the oath thrumming through his blood, that this was just the beginning. Rava had been caged for saving a life. Evan had been branded for freeing her. And now they belonged to each other in ways neither of them fully understood, tied by blood and choice, and the shattered pieces of a punishment that should never have existed. The healer finished bandaging his hands. Rest tonight. Tomorrow the real work begins. Evan looked at Rava. What happens tomorrow? Training, integration, learning to live with the oath. She paused. Learning to live with each other. Sounds complicated. It will be. But she was smiling again, and that was enough. They left the medical tent and walked to the small shelter Sarat had assigned them. A converted cargo container with 2 sleeping mats and not much else. Sparse, harsh, safe. Rava sat on one mat, Evan on the other, 3 feet between them. Might as well have been miles. "Can I ask you something?" Evan said. "Yes. Why were you really in that cage? What's the full story?" Rava was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was distant, remembering. 2 years ago, there was a raid. Humans attacking a clan settlement, trying to take resources. My people fought back. It was brutal. I was part of the defense force. She touched her wrist where the chain marks were still raw. During the fight, a building collapsed. I heard screaming inside, a child's voice. I should have left her. That was the rule, but I couldn't. So you saved her. I pulled her out of the rubble. She was maybe 6 years old, human, terrified. I carried her out of the combat zone and left her where her people would find her. Rava's hands clenched. Her parents saw me. They reported it, not as a rescue, as a kidnapping attempt. My clan investigated, found out the truth, but the law was clear. Contact with humans outside of combat is forbidden. Saving one doesn't matter. Contact is contact. Contamination is contamination. That's psychotic. That's survival. Rava met his eyes. You have to understand, your kind have hunted us, enslaved us, experimented on us. Every time we try to coexist, it ends in blood. The laws exist because without them, we die out. But you broke the law anyway. Because she was a child. Rava's voice cracked. Because some laws are wrong. Evan nodded slowly. And now? Now we're bonded. Now I'm pardoned. Now you're one of us, sort of. She smiled weakly. Congratulations. You bought a slave and ended up adopted by her people. That's a bad trade. I don't think so. Rava looked at him, really looked, and something shifted in her expression. Softness, vulnerability. Why did you do it? She asked. Really? Why break the cage? Evan thought about lying, about giving some noble answer about justice or freedom or doing the right thing. But the oath was there, thrumming between them, and he had the feeling she'd know if he lied. Because I've been trapped too, he said quietly. Not in a cage, but trapped, and no one ever came for me. So when I saw you, when I heard how scared you were, he shrugged. I guess I came for you instead. The silence that followed was heavy with meaning neither of them could articulate. Outside, barely audible, came the sound of retreating footsteps. Someone had been standing there listening to every word. Rava's head snapped toward the entrance. Did you? Yeah. They sat frozen, waiting, but whoever it was didn't return. We're not safe here, Rava whispered. Even in the clan. Not everyone accepts this. Your sister? Maybe. Or someone else who thinks humans contaminate us. She touched his hand briefly. We need to be careful. Thank you, Rava whispered. You already thanked me. I'm thanking you again. They sat there in the dim light from outside. 2 people who'd been strangers that morning, now bound by blood and choice, and something neither of them fully understood yet. Eventually exhaustion won. Evan lay back on his mat, every muscle screaming. The burns on his hands throbbed. His ribs ached. But he was alive. Across the 3-foot gap, Rava lay down too, facing him. The oath will be stronger tomorrow, she said. You'll start feeling what I feel, hearing my thoughts sometimes. It's disorienting. Great. I'll feel you too. So if you have any deep, dark secrets, you should probably tell me now before I just know them. Evan laughed despite himself. Fair warning, my thoughts are mostly complaints and hunger. I can work with that. They lay there in comfortable silence. Evan felt sleep pulling at him, heavy and irresistible. Just before he drifted off, Rava spoke again. Evan? Yeah? I'm glad you came to the market today. Me too. Sleep took him, deep and dreamless at first. But then something changed. He was standing in a different place. A settlement he didn't recognize. Buildings intact. People moving peacefully. He felt smaller. Younger. Happy. Then fire. Screaming. Running. A cage being welded shut while Rava begged for mercy. But there was something else. In the dream, in the darkness beyond the fire, someone was watching. A figure motionless, observing the cage being sealed. Not helping, not interfering, just watching with eyes that gleamed orange in the shadows. Evan tried to see more clearly, but the figure remained obscured. Then a sound, metal scraping against metal, slow and deliberate. Getting closer, the dream fractured. Evan woke with a gasp, heart hammering. Across the gap, Rava's eyes were open, glowing faint gold in the darkness. She was sitting up, tense. "You heard it too," she whispered, not a question. The scraping? Someone was watching. In the memory, her hands were shaking. "That wasn't just my dream, Evan. That was real. Someone was there when they caged me. Someone I'd forgotten." Before Evan could respond, a shadow moved outside their shelter. Footsteps, careful and quiet. They both froze. The footsteps stopped, then retreated. Rava moved to the entrance and looked out. Gone. But someone was listening. Who? "I don't know." She came back, sat closer than before. "The oath shares everything. Memories, dreams, pain, joy, all of it. But it also makes us vulnerable. Anyone close enough can feel the resonance. How do you stand it?" "You get used to it, and..." She hesitated. "And it's less lonely. Knowing someone else carries it with you." Evan's chest tightened. "I'm sorry that happened to you. I'm sorry you're stuck with me now." "I'm not." They looked at each other across the darkness, and something unspoken passed between them. Not words, not thoughts, just understanding. Evan closed his eyes and let sleep take him again. This time the dreams were gentler, memories of open sky, running through sand, freedom before the cage. Her memories, her freedom. And somehow, in sharing them, they became his too. Morning came harsh and bright. Someone kicked the side of the container, metal ringing loud. "Up!" Surette's voice sharp as broken glass. "Training starts now." Evan groaned and tried to sit up. His hands were agony. The burns had stiffened overnight. Bandages stuck to raw flesh. His ribs screamed protest. Every muscle felt like it had been beaten with rocks. Rava was already standing, moving with fluid grace despite having slept in chains for years. She offered him her hand. The moment their skin touched, Evan felt it. A jolt of connection, deeper than yesterday. He could feel her concern, her guilt at his pain, her determination to make this work. It wasn't telepathy exactly, more like emotional resonance, feelings bleeding from one to the other. "The oath is settling," Rava said quietly, pulling him to his feet. "It'll be intense for a few days." They stepped outside into blinding sunlight. The camp was already active. Warriors training in pairs, sparring with controlled violence. The sound of metal on metal, grunts of effort, the thud of bodies hitting sand. Surette stood in the center of a cleared area, arms crossed. Behind her, a rack of weapons gleamed in the morning light. "Bonded pairs fight as one unit," she announced as they approached. "You share reflexes through the oath. You anticipate each other's movements. Done right, 2 bonded fighters are worth 10 regular warriors." She paused. "Done wrong, you both die because you're too busy tripping over each other." "Encouraging," Evan muttered. Surette ignored him. "Rava, you know the forms. Evan, you know nothing. We fix that." She tossed him a training blade. Dull metal, weighted for practice. Evan caught it awkwardly with his bandaged hands, pain flaring. He nearly dropped it. "Your hands are ruined," Surette observed. "Good. You'll learn to fight through pain." "Rava, pair with him. Basic defensive stance." Rava moved beside Evan, adjusting his grip on the blade, shifting his feet into proper position. Every touch sent feedback through the oath, her muscle memory, her knowledge, flowing into him like water finding new channels. "Feel that?" Rava asked. "Yeah, it's weird." "It's the oath teaching you. Don't fight it." Surette attacked without warning. She came at Evan fast, training blade a blur. He reacted on instinct, wrong instinct, and nearly got hit in the throat. But Rava's hand was there, deflecting the strike, her body moving in sync with his, even though they hadn't planned it. "Again," Surette said, resetting. She attacked. They defended. Barely. Again. Attack. Defense. Failure. Again. Over and over, each iteration slightly better than the last. The oath was doing something to Evan's nervous system. He could feel Rava's movements before she made them, could sense her intent, her balance shifts, her breathing patterns. His body started responding without conscious thought, moving in ways he'd never trained. But it wasn't enough. Surette's blade got through their defense and cracked against Evan's ribs, the same ones he'd injured yesterday. He went down hard, vision whiting out. Through the oath, he felt Rava's spike of fear and rage. She spun on her sister, blade raised. "He's injured! You're pushing too hard!" "The enemy won't care about his injuries," Surette said flatly. "Neither will I. Get up, human." Evan struggled to his feet, tasting copper. "I'm up. Then defend." The training continued, brutal and unrelenting. By midday, Evan was bleeding from a dozen small cuts, his bandages soaked through with blood and sweat. Rava wasn't much better. Surette had matched her skill level, pushing her to exhaustion. But they were improving. Small moments where their synchronization clicked. A perfectly timed block. A coordinated counterattack that almost landed. Movements so fluid they seemed choreographed. The oath was binding their combat instincts together, creating something new. "Enough," Surette finally said. "Eat. Rest. Be ready for evening drills." Evan collapsed in the sand. Rava sat beside him, breathing hard. "Your sister is trying to kill me," Evan said. "She's trying to prepare you." Rava wiped blood from a cut on her cheek. "The clan accepted us, but that doesn't mean they trust us. We have to prove ourselves. By getting beaten into paste? By surviving." Food arrived, dried meat, grain paste, water. Simple. Enough. They ate in silence, too tired for conversation. Evan could feel Rava's exhaustion through the oath, layered with his own. It was overwhelming, this constant awareness of another person's state. Every emotion, every physical sensation, doubled and reflected back. "How do you tune it out?" he asked. "You don't. You just learn to live with it." Rava flexed her wrists, chain scars standing out against blue skin. "It's better than the alternative." The cage, the isolation, the fear. She looked at him. This, the oath, the training, even Surette being brutal, it's all better. Evan nodded. He understood that on a level deeper than words. They had maybe an hour before training resumed. Evan used it to get his bandages changed by the healer, who clucked disapprovingly at the damage. "You're tearing the skin worse," she scolded. "These need rest, not combat." "Tell that to Surette." "I did. She told me pain builds character." The healer wrapped fresh bandages with practiced efficiency. "The oath will help you heal faster. Bonded pairs share regenerative resources. But you're still human. You still break." Comforting. Back at the training ground, Surette had set up an obstacle course. Bonded pairs must navigate terrain as one unit. If one falls, both fall. "Begin." The course was hellish. Climbing walls, rope crossings, narrow beams, all designed for beings with better balance and strength than Evan possessed. But Rava was there, literally hauling him up obstacles, catching him when he slipped, her strength compensating for his weakness. They reached the rope crossing, a single line stretched between two platforms, 20 feet above rocks. Rava went first, moving with perfect balance. Evan followed, gripping the rope with bandaged hands. Halfway across, his foot slipped. He fell. For one terrible second, he was in free fall. Then the oath screamed. Not pain, something worse. A tearing sensation like reality itself was ripping. Distance. Too much distance too fast. Rava's hand shot out and caught his wrist. She was hanging off the platform edge, holding his full weight, her face contorted with the strain of fighting the oath's pull. "I've got you," she gasped, but Evan could feel it through their bond. The oath was panicking, trying to yank them back together, and the force was hurting them both. His vision blurred. Her arm was shaking violently. "Pull me up," he shouted. She did, muscles straining, hauling him onto the platform. They collapsed together, both trembling. "What was that?" Evan panted. "The oath. We separated too fast, fell too far. It thought we were breaking the distance limit." Rava's eyes were wide with fear. "If I hadn't caught you, if you'd hit the ground, the shock might have killed us both." Surette appeared below them. She'd seen everything. The oath requires constant proximity. Sudden separation can trigger fatal feedback. Remember that. And through the oath, he could feel what she needed. A brace here, a counterweight there, moments where his lesser strength perfectly balanced her greater mass. They finished the course. Not fast, not pretty, but together, and more careful now. Acceptable, Sarette said, which from her seemed like high praise. The days blurred together. Training, eating, sleeping, more training. The oath grew stronger, the connection deeper. Evan started knowing Rava's thoughts before she spoke them. She anticipated his movements with perfect accuracy. They developed a wordless communication that went beyond language. But the cost was high. Every night, Evan dreamed Rava's memories. The cage being sealed, years of darkness, the sound of her own breathing inside metal bars, the suffocating fear. He woke gasping, drenched in sweat, feeling her trauma like it was his own. And she felt his, the loneliness that had driven him to the market, the desperate hope that maybe, somewhere, he mattered to someone. "I'm sorry," she whispered one night after he woke from a particularly bad dream. "I'm sorry you have to carry this. I chose it. You chose to free me. You didn't choose this." "Maybe I did." Evan sat up, running bandaged hands through his hair. "Maybe this is what it means to actually give a damn about someone. You don't get to pick what parts you carry." Rava's eyes gleamed in the darkness. "That's surprisingly profound for someone who came to buy a knife." Despite everything, Evan laughed. 2 weeks passed, then 3. The clan began to accept them. Not warmly, but with grudging respect. Bonded pairs were rare, sacred in their own way. The fact that one half was human caused tension, but Evan's willingness to endure Saret's training earned points. And Rava was different now. Without the cage, she was sharper, faster, more confident. She laughed more, spoke more. The trauma was still there, would always be there, but she was healing. One evening, after particularly brutal training, they sat on the edge of camp watching the sunset paint the waste in shades of amber and rust. "Sarette says we're ready," Rava said quietly. "Ready for what?" "A real mission, patrol duty. There's been raider activity on the northern border. Human raiders, actually. The clan wants us to investigate." Evan's stomach tightened. "Testing us. Yes, if we succeed, we're fully integrated. If we fail..." She didn't finish the sentence. "When do we leave?" "Tomorrow at dawn." They sat in silence, watching the sun disappear. Through the oath, Evan could feel Rava's nervousness, her excitement, her fear that he might die because of her. "Hey," he said softly, "we're going to be fine." "You can't know that." "No, but I know we're stronger together than apart. The oath proves that." Rava leaned against his shoulder, carefully, like she was still learning she was allowed to. "I came for a weapon," Evan said, echoing words that felt like they belonged to someone else. Some other version of him from before the cage shattered. "And?" Rava prompted, smiling. "And you were the one who chose me." They sat there as darkness fell. 2 people bound by blood and choice, and something that had no name in any language either of them knew. Tomorrow would bring violence and danger, and tests they might not survive. But tonight they had this: the quiet, the connection, the absolute certainty that neither of them was alone anymore. Dawn came cold and sharp. Sarette handed them weapons, real ones this time. For Rava, a long blade with a curved edge designed for her strength. For Evan, something smaller, lighter, balanced for speed over power. "The raider camp is 10 miles north," Sarette said, rolling out a crude map. "Intel says they're planning to hit one of our trade caravans. Your mission: confirm their numbers, assess their weapons, report back. Do not engage unless necessary." As Evan reached for his weapon, something caught his eye. Carved into the leather-wrapped grip was a symbol, 3 circles intersecting, with lines radiating outward. Crude, recent. Rava saw it and went rigid. "What?" Evan asked. She grabbed the weapon, turning it over. Her hands were shaking. "This symbol, where did this come from?" Sarette frowned. "The armory. Why?" "This is a breach mark." Rava's voice was tight. "Someone carved this, recently. It's a warning, or a target marker." "What does it mean?" Evan demanded. Rava met his eyes, and through the oath he felt her terror. "It means something knows we're coming. Something on the other side marked us." Saret's expression darkened. then you need to be more careful. If breach creatures are tracking you specifically, we can handle it, Evan said, though his stomach was ice. Can you? Surratt studied them both. Because if you can't, don't come back. We can't afford to lead them here. And if engagement is necessary? Rava asked, voice steadier than she felt. Surratt's smile was cold. Then show them what bonded pairs can do. They left camp as the sun cleared the horizon, walking into the waste with marked weapons and the knowledge that something was hunting them specifically. The terrain was brutal, broken rock, sand that shifted underfoot, heat that climbed steadily as morning wore on. But they moved well together. Rava's enhanced stamina balanced by Evan's knowledge of human raider tactics, her strength compensating for his exhaustion. If you hear anything screaming like metal tearing, Surratt had warned before they left, run. Breach creatures have been sighted in the region. Evan hadn't asked what breach creatures were. He was regretting that now. Through the oath, they barely needed to speak. A touch on the shoulder meant stop. A gesture meant direction. They developed a language beyond words. 5 miles in, they found the first body. Human, male, maybe 30. Dead 3 days based on decomposition. Killed by something that had torn his throat out. Claws, not blades. Raider? Evan asked. Rava examined the corpse, professional. Detached. Yes, but not killed by clan warriors. This was something else. Something animal. They kept moving, more cautious now. 7 miles in, they found 3 more bodies. Same brutal kills. Same torn flesh. There's something wrong here, Rava said, voice tight with tension Evan could feel through the oath. Raiders don't kill their own like this. Unless there's infighting, or unless something is killing them. They crested a ridge and saw the raider camp below. 30, maybe 40 structures, makeshift and temporary. But the camp was quiet. Too quiet. No movement. No fires. No sounds. We need to get closer, Evan said. They descended carefully, weapons drawn, every sense heightened. The oath was screaming warnings. Danger, threat, wrongness. The camp was a massacre. Bodies everywhere, torn apart with savage efficiency. Not just killed, destroyed. Whatever had done this had been thorough and merciless. What the hell happened here? Evan whispered. Rava's hand found his, gripping tight. Through the oath, he felt her terror, primal and overwhelming. I know this pattern, she said, voice shaking. I've seen it before. What is it? Breach creatures. Things that started coming through after the old reactors tore holes in the sky. They're not natural, they hunt everything, human, clan, doesn't matter. As if summoned by her words, something screamed in the distance. Not human, not animal, something else entirely. A sound that triggered every instinct to run. We need to leave, Rava said urgently. Now! They turned to run and found their path blocked. The creature was tall, easily 8 feet, with too many limbs, skin that looked like melted plastic, eyes that glowed with sick yellow light. Its mouth was wrong, split vertically instead of horizontally, lined with teeth like broken glass. The oath exploded with shared terror. Move! Evan shoved Rava left as the creature lunged. Its claws raked the ground where they'd been standing, gouging deep furrows in packed earth. They ran. The creature followed, impossibly fast. Split up! Evan yelled. No! Rava grabbed his arm. The oath. We can't separate more than a mile or we collapse. They ran together then, weaving through destroyed tents, leaping over corpses, the creature's screaming getting closer. Evan's lungs burned. His ribs screamed. The burns on his hands split open, bleeding through bandages. They couldn't outrun this thing. We have to fight, Rava gasped. How? Together, like Surratt trained us. Trust the oath. They skidded to a stop in the center of the camp, spinning to face the creature as it burst through a tent. All wrong angles and nightmare physics. It lunged. The oath took over. Evan didn't think, couldn't think, just moved. His blade came up as Rava's came down, their attacks perfectly synchronized, cutting from opposite angles. The creature shrieked and stumbled, black fluid spraying from wounds. But it didn't stop. It lashed out with 3 limbs at once. Rava caught one, deflecting. Evan rolled under another. The third caught his shoulder, claws ripping through fabric and skin. pain exploded through the oath, doubled. His physical wound, her emotional agony at his injury. "Focus!" Rava shouted. They attacked again, moving as one unit, their blades extensions of shared will. Cut, block, dodge, strike. A brutal dance with death as partner. The creature was faster, stronger, but they had something it didn't. Perfect coordination born of the oath. Evan feinted left. The creature followed. Rava's blade punched through its torso from behind, so deep she had to brace her foot on its back to pull free. And in that moment, Evan understood. Without the cage, Rava wasn't just strong. She was terrifying. It went down screaming. They stood there, weapons raised, breathing hard, waiting for it to move again. It didn't. Silence fell over the destroyed camp, broken only by their ragged breathing. "Is it dead?" Evan asked. "I don't know. Rava stopped, head snapping toward the horizon. "Oh no." "What?" "Listen." Evan listened and heard them. More screams, dozens of them, coming from every direction. A whole pack. "Run," Rava said. "Run now." They ran, wounded and exhausted, the oath pushing them beyond human or clan limits. Behind them, the screaming grew closer, multiple creatures converging on the camp. They wouldn't make it back to clan territory. Not at this pace. Not injured. Ahead, a rock formation offered shelter. A cave entrance, narrow and defensible. "There!" Evan pointed. They dove inside just as the first creature crested the ridge behind them. The cave was shallow, but the entrance was narrow. Only one creature could fit at a time. Rava and Evan positioned themselves in the mouth of the cave, weapons ready, backs against stone. Through the oath, Evan felt Rava's fear, her determination, her absolute refusal to let him die here. And she felt his, the certainty that if they died, at least they died together. The creatures came, not one, not 5, 20 of them surrounding the cave, screaming their rage. The first one pushed inside. Rava and Evan fought as one, the oath binding their movements into something beautiful and deadly. They killed it. The second one came. They killed it. The third, the fourth. Bodies piled up in the narrow entrance, black blood slicking the stone. Evan's shoulder was agony. Rava had wounds across her arms, her back, but they kept fighting because the alternative was death. The creatures kept coming, until suddenly they didn't. The screaming stopped. Silence fell, broken by new sounds, metal clashing, clan war cries, organized combat. Surette's voice cut through the chaos. "Rava! Evan! Sound off!" "Here!" Rava shouted. "In the cave." Warriors flooded the area, cutting down creatures with practiced efficiency. Surette appeared in the cave entrance, weapon bloody, face grim. "You're alive," she said, and something in her voice suggested she was surprised. "Barely," Evan croaked. Surette surveyed the pile of dead creatures blocking the entrance. "You killed 6 of them. 6. By yourselves." "The oath," Rava said simply. Surette nodded slowly. Then incredibly she smiled. "You passed your test. The clan is yours now. Both of you." They limped back to camp, surrounded by warriors, the oath keeping them upright when individual strength would have failed. The healers descended immediately, treating their wounds with practiced hands. That night, Elder Corrin herself came to their shelter. "You defended yourselves against breach creatures and survived," she said without preamble. "That is no small feat. The clan recognizes your bond as legitimate. You are full members now." Rava bowed her head. "Thank you, Elder." Elder Corrin looked at Evan. "You came from nothing, broke our laws, shattered our sacred objects, and somehow became one of us. That's unprecedented." "Is that a problem?" Evan asked. "No." The Elder almost smiled. "It's remarkable. You represent something new, a bridge between our kinds that might actually hold." She paused. "But know this, the oath binds you until death. There is no divorce, no separation, no escape. You are hers and she is yours for as long as you both live." "I understand," Evan said. "Do you?" Elder Corrin studied him. "Because that child she saved, the one who earned her the cage, that child is alive because Rava sacrificed everything, and you sacrificed everything to free her. That kind of choice has consequences that ripple farther than you can imagine." With that cryptic statement, she left. Evan and Rava sat in their shelter, bandaged and exhausted. alive against all odds. "The cage is gone," Rava said quietly, "but we're still bound." "Yeah," Evan agreed. "We are. Do you regret it?" Evan thought about the market, the terror in her eyes, the sound of metal shattering, the feeling of her hand in his when the creatures came. "No," he said, "not even a little." Rava smiled, soft and genuine and free. "Good, because I don't either." They lay down on their mats, closer together now than they'd been that first night, the 3-foot gap reduced to inches. The oath hummed between them, steady as a heartbeat, binding them in ways no cage ever could. Outside, the waste wind howled, but inside they had shelter, and each other. And that, somehow, was enough. Evan closed his eyes, feeling Rava's presence through the oath, her thoughts bleeding into his. Gratitude, affection, trust, something deeper that neither of them had words for yet. He'd only meant to buy something sharp enough to keep him alive a little longer. Instead, he'd found someone who'd been caged for kindness, punished for mercy, broken by laws that valued tradition over compassion. And in freeing her, he'd found something he hadn't even known he was searching for. Not a weapon, not protection, but purpose. In the darkness, Rava's voice came soft. "What are you thinking?" "That I came for a blade," Evan said, "and left with something better." "What's better than a weapon?" "A reason to use it." Through the oath, he felt her understanding, her agreement, her warmth. They'd been strangers when the sun rose. They'd been broken when the cage shattered. And now, bound by blood and choice and laws older than memory, they were something new. Not slave and master, not prisoner and purchaser, but equals, partners. 2 lives woven into one thread that couldn't be severed without destroying both. He'd only meant to buy something sharp enough to keep him alive a little longer. He found someone who'd never had the chance to be human. Until now. The oath would never let them be alone again, and neither of them wanted it to. In the months that followed, they became legends in the clan. The human who broke the cage, the criminal who became free, the bonded pair who killed breach creatures and survived where others fell. But that night, in their small shelter, with wounds still fresh and the oath still settling, they were just 2 people who'd chosen each other against all reason, all law, all sense. And somehow, impossibly, it was the best choice either of them had ever made.